It started with a sound I wasn't supposed to hear. His door was cracked open, just slightly, and the music spilled out like warm honey, slow and thick, wrapping itself around my senses before I even stepped inside. I should have turned away. I should have knocked. But something in the melody held me there. And then I heard her voice. It wasn't singing. Let me rewind. I'd been staying at Drew's place for a few days. His apartment always felt like an escape from mine. More space, better light, and him. We'd been best friends since college, the kind of friendship where people always assume there's more going on. There wasn't. Until now. He was out, supposedly, and I had just come back from a run. Hair damp with sweat, skin still buzzing from the crisp evening air. I was headed toward the shower when I noticed his door ajar. The song playing was familiar, something sultry and slow, like it belonged in a film where the characters said more with looks than words. The kind of song you don't just hear, you feel it under your skin. But that wasn't what stopped me. Underneath the music, breath. A woman's breath. Not words, not laughter. Just this raw, caught in her throat kind of sound that made my knees lock. For a second I thought he might be in there. With someone. That I just walked into something I was never meant to witness. But then I looked closer. The bed was made, the room dim but empty, save for a single Bluetooth speaker glowing softly on the nightstand. I moved toward it slowly, like the room itself might shatter if I stepped too loudly. The song transitioned to another, equally intimate. And then I heard the voice again. Tell me what you'd do if I touched you right now. My stomach flipped. It wasn't a commercial track. It was a recording, a private one. Her voice was low, teasing. It crackled slightly like it was recorded on a phone, maybe late at night. There was something achingly intimate about it. Not graphic. Not crude. But suggestive in all the right or wrong ways. And he'd kept it. Not only kept it but left it playing. I sat down slowly on the edge of his bed. Towel slipping from around my neck. Sweat cooling on the back of my neck. My heart was racing. I couldn't tell if it was jealousy or curiosity, or something darker. Who was she? When was this recorded? And why did it feel like she was whispering to me? I should have turned it off. I should have walked away. Instead I laid back. The song changed again. This one had a pulse, a beat like a slow heartbeat beneath velvet. And just when I thought it couldn't get more surreal, I heard his voice join hers. Low, playful, almost commanding. I want you to close your eyes and imagine I'm right there. I didn't mean to do it, but I did. I closed my eyes. I should have stopped the moment I heard him, but something in his tone, quiet, coaxing, dark with intention, unlocked something in me I didn't know was waiting. It was like hearing a secret not meant for you, but once it's out, you can't unhear it. You don't even want to. I want you to feel my hands on your skin, his voice said. Slow. Like I've waited too long for this. And I did. I could feel it. Not just because of the words but because I knew that voice. Every syllable curved with the same teasing lilt he used when we joked. When he'd throw a pillow at me during movie nights. When he'd call me trouble with that grin he thought I didn't notice. But here it was different. This was Drew stripped of charm and politeness. This was a version of him I wasn't supposed to know. The woman on the recording breathed his name like a spell. There was a pause, then a soft moan. Not vulgar, not loud, just enough to make my skin tingle. The way she said please made something inside me unravel. And still the speaker played on. My fingers hovered above it. I could have turned it off, ended the moment. But instead I found myself leaning closer, lying sideways on his bed like I belonged there. The scent of him was everywhere. Faint cologne, cedar, that unmistakable warmth of someone you've hugged too many times not to memorize. My cheek brushed the pillow. It was soft, worn in. Like him. Was it wrong that I wanted to hear more? I told myself I was only listening because I was shocked. Curious. Maybe even worried. Maybe this was some twisted way of confronting feelings I'd buried under years of friendship and convenience. But the truth? I was jealous. Deeply, fiercely jealous of whoever she was. This woman who got to hear him like this, who got to be inside his head in the middle of the night. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be her. Or if I wanted him to make something like this for me. The music swelled again. A slow, haunting piano. His voice returned softer now, like it was meant for someone lying inches away, wrapped in his sheets. I'd start with your wrist, he whispered. Right here. Just one kiss to see how long you'd last. My wrist tingled. Goosebumps crawled up my arm. That's when I heard the door. A soft click. My entire body froze. Then his voice again, not from the speaker this time. From behind me. "You're listening to it," he said. I turned. And he was standing in the doorway. Shirt half buttoned. Tie loose. Eyes locked on mine, unreadable. Not angry. Not surprised. Just waiting. I didn't say anything. Neither did he. The silence between us stretched, thick and charged, like the moment before lightning touches ground. He stood there, framed by the door, half in shadow, half lit by the soft orange glow of the hallway. His tie hung loose, the top 2 buttons of his shirt undone. He looked different. Not like the Drew I bantered with over takeout containers or teased for never doing his laundry. He looked like the man in the recording. And I was still lying on his bed, still listening. The track ended, and a soft hum filled the room as the playlist cycled. I could have sat up. I could have laughed it off, pretended I'd stumbled in by mistake. But I didn't. I just looked at him. Eyes wide, heart pounding in places I didn't know could ache. "Didn't expect you back so soon," I finally said, my voice thinner than I meant it to be. He didn't answer. Just stepped inside and closed the door behind him, slow, deliberate, the sound of the latch falling into place louder than it should have been. "I forgot it was still playing," he said. His eyes dropped to where I was lying. "But you didn't stop it." I sat up slowly, the air between us turning heavier with each breath. My skin buzzed under his gaze. "I didn't know what it was at first. But you figured it out." He moved closer, each step soft against the rug. "And you stayed." I should have lied. Should have laughed and said it was a mistake, a moment of curiosity, nothing more. But the truth was still in the room with us, pulsing just under the surface like a second heartbeat. "I didn't want to," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I couldn't stop." His expression didn't change, but something shifted in the way he looked at me. Like a door creaked open in his mind. He stopped just a few feet away, arms loose at his sides, eyes flicking down to the speaker and then back to me. "It wasn't meant for anyone else," he said slowly. "I made it a long time ago. For someone I thought I couldn't have." Something in me twisted. "Was it her?" I asked, even though I didn't know who her was. He didn't nod. He didn't need to. "It was a way to get the words out," he said. "The want. The heat. The ache of it." I swallowed hard. "And now?" He looked at me for a long moment. Not just at me, into me. The silence was thick with questions we'd never dared to ask. We had built years of safety around our friendship, layers of jokes and stories and late-night snacks. And now it was all unraveling, one breath at a time. "I don't need to record it anymore," he said. The room spun slightly, or maybe it was just me. The gravity of his words sank into my chest, spreading warmth and panic in equal measure. And then, because I couldn't help it, I asked, "Do you still think you can't have her?" He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat of him, the scent of him. His voice dropped. "That depends on whether she still plans to walk away." His hand moved slowly, deliberately, and brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. The back of his fingers grazed my cheek, and I swear my skin lit up under his touch. But just before he said anything else, his phone buzzed. Once. Twice. He looked down. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize. And everything shifted again. The screen lit up like a warning. Her name was Elle. Simple. Elegant. Too elegant. It sat there on the glowing display like a truth neither of us wanted to acknowledge. I didn't know who she was, but I knew what she meant. Drew glanced down, thumb hovering over the screen, and for a moment, I could see the indecision flicker across his face. Like the part of him that had been about to lean in was now yanked back by some invisible thread. One name. That's all it took. "You should get that," I said, but my voice didn't match the words. Came out quiet, too careful. Like I was already bracing for something I didn't want to hear. He silenced the phone instead. And still he didn't step back. "I haven't talked to her in weeks," he said, as if that made it better. She's not part of this." "This?" I echoed, unable to stop the bite in my tone. "You mean me lying on your bed, listening to a fantasy you recorded for another woman?" He flinched barely, but I saw it. That tiny crack in his calm. And I regretted the words as soon as I said them. Not because they weren't true but because they were. He stepped back just slightly, his hands sliding into his pockets. Defensive now. Guarded. I recorded that when I didn't know what to do with how I felt, he said, voice low, steady. And no, it wasn't for her. It was about someone I saw every day but couldn't touch. Someone who always looked at me like I was just her safe place. My breath caught. It wasn't about Elle. It was about me. Something in me recoiled, then pulled tight, like every emotion I'd spent years denying had suddenly been tossed into the light. I felt exposed, cracked open. And he just stood there watching me process it. You never said anything, I whispered. You never looked at me like this before, he said. Silence again. Thick, unbearable. The air between us was pulsing. With heat. With memory. With everything we never said. The music was still playing in the background, soft and slow. A new song now. Something with a heartbeat in strings. It was almost cruel. I looked up at him, and the question came out before I could stop it. What happens now? He stepped forward, close enough that I had to tilt my chin up to meet his eyes. That depends, he said. Do you want the version of me who records fantasies in the dark? Or the one who's finally standing here, ready to give you everything he's been afraid to say out loud? I didn't answer. I just reached up, fingers barely touching the edge of his shirt, tracing the fabric like it might burn me. My hand was shaking, not with fear but with something hungrier, deeper. The kind of ache that doesn't come from loneliness but from years of almosts. Then just as his breath grazed mine, his phone buzzed again. This time he turned it over. 3 missed calls. 1 text. We need to talk. I'm outside. He froze. I turned toward the window, and there she was. A woman, waiting by the front door. I didn't recognize her, but I recognized the way Drew went still. She was standing by the gate in a long coat, arms folded, pacing like she wasn't sure if she wanted to knock or turn back. But her presence alone was loud. Too loud. Like someone had thrown cold water on the room we just set on fire. I stepped back from him without thinking. The space between us that had felt impossibly small now felt dangerous. Like touching him might set off an alarm. He cursed under his breath. Quiet. Torn. Is that her? I asked, though I already knew. He didn't answer. That was answer enough. She wasn't supposed to show up, he said, running a hand through his hair, the tension flooding back into his shoulders. We ended things weeks ago. But ended was too soft. Too slippery. If it had really ended, she wouldn't be here. Not looking like that. Equal parts beautiful and wrecked. She doesn't look like it's over, I said, trying not to sound like every emotion I'd kept locked behind my ribs was suddenly clawing its way out. She's not you, he said, his voice almost a plea. And I hated how much I wanted to believe him. I turned away from the window, heart pounding, hands clenched. The music was still playing, still mocking me. That soft, sensual rhythm now felt like the soundtrack to a story that was never mine to begin with. She was real, I whispered. Not a fantasy. You let her in. He looked at me, then really looked, with this raw, unfiltered ache in his eyes. Like he wanted to explain everything, but knew that words weren't enough. She was the distraction, he said. The stand-in. Because I couldn't have you. My breath caught. My chest ached. I never knew, I said. You were never supposed to, he whispered. We stood there, both of us wrecked in the silence. I should have walked out. Let him deal with his ghost at the door. I wasn't built for this kind of drama, for being the other woman in a story I didn't even know I was in. But I didn't move. Because under the jealousy and the doubt, there was still the way his voice had sounded on that recording. There was still the way his fingers had brushed my skin like a secret. And the truth, messy, complicated, burning, was that part of me still wanted him. Outside, the doorbell rang. He looked at me, eyes full of apology and something deeper. I have to talk to her, he said. I know, I replied, voice cracking. He hesitated, then slowly walked out, leaving me alone in the room where everything had changed. I sat back down on the bed. The music kept playing. And then somewhere in the background I heard it again. A soft click. The speaker was still recording. I didn't mean to touch it. But the speaker sat there, glowing softly on the nightstand like it knew something I didn't. Like it saw what had just happened in this room and wasn't finished with me yet. I picked it up slowly, thumb brushing the side where a faint red light blinked. Recording. My breath hitched. Was that an accident? Or had he planned for this? I hit play. First, nothing. Just soft ambient sound, the fading echo of our voices from moments ago. But then it picked up something else. Footsteps. His voice. And hers. I shouldn't have listened. It was wrong. It was so wrong. But so was everything else now. I turned the volume just high enough to hear the faint hum of her voice. She wasn't yelling. She sounded calm. Familiar. Like she'd been here before. Like this was a routine they'd danced through more than once. I know she's here, Elle said. Drew didn't deny it. You shouldn't have come, he said. His voice was lower now, strained. Are you doing this to hurt me? She asked. Because it's working. And then softer. Or are you doing this because you're finally choosing her? I stopped breathing. The silence between their words said everything. No door slamming. No angry footsteps. Just this slow simmering tension I knew all too well. The kind that clings to the walls long after people leave the room. I pressed pause. Because what I felt wasn't anger. It was something far more dangerous. Power. For once I was the secret. I was the one being talked about in the hallway. I was the shift in the story. The ghost in someone else's fantasy. And somehow, I didn't want to run from that. I laid back again, this time fully, sinking into his bed, the sheets still faintly warm from his body. My fingers traced the edge of the pillow where he'd touched me earlier. My heart was a battlefield of want and warning. The speaker blinked again. Still recording. Still listening. And in that moment I realized something that changed everything. I didn't want to be the accidental confession. I wanted to be the next recording. I wanted to leave something behind. A trace. A breath. A voice that he couldn't silence even if he tried. So I picked it up. I held it close. And with my heart thundering in my chest, I whispered into it. You're not the only one who dreams with the lights off. The house was silent when Drew returned. No music. No Elle. Just the thick, loaded quiet that follows after something nearly fell apart, and somehow didn't. He opened the door slowly, like he wasn't sure what version of me he'd find on the other side. I was still on his bed, still in that same place where everything had started to come undone. Only now the speaker was in my lap. And I wasn't afraid of being caught anymore. He looked at me. I looked back. And neither of us blinked. I told her the truth, he said finally, voice hoarse. She's gone. I nodded slowly. What truth? That I stopped wanting her the moment I realized you weren't just my best friend. There it was. Simple. Devastating. He stepped forward, cautious like I was something sacred. Like if he moved too fast I'd vanish. But I didn't. I stayed. I burned. You recorded me, I said, not accusing, just curious. I left it on by accident, he replied. But maybe part of me didn't want to hide anymore. I let the silence stretch between us like a thin, trembling string. Then, without breaking eye contact, I lifted the speaker and pressed play. My voice filled the room. Just a whisper. You're not the only one who dreams with the lights off. The look on his face, it broke something in me. That quiet devastation, that hunger. It was the look of a man who'd waited too long, who'd buried too much. And now it was rising. He didn't speak. He didn't ask permission. He just moved. His hands found my face. Not rough, not hurried, just sure. Like he knew exactly where I belonged. His thumb brushed my bottom lip slow. My breath caught in my throat. I've imagined this, he said, barely audible. But not like this. Never like this. How then? I whispered. He leaned in, lips almost touching mine, not yet kissing. Just breathing me in like he needed it more than air. Slower, he murmured. So slow it hurts. And it did. The nearness. The not touching. The almost. His forehead rested against mine. I could feel the tension in his jaw, the restraint in his fingertips as they traced down my arms, pausing at my wrists like they were afraid to go further without invitation. I don't want to ruin this, he said. You already did, I whispered. And so did I. His hand stilled. But maybe, I added, some things are meant to be ruined. He kissed me then, finally. But it wasn't soft. It wasn't polite. It was everything we'd been denying for years, crashing to the surface all at once. Every breath was heat. Every touch was memory rewritten. It wasn't perfect. It was honest. And when we finally pulled apart, breathless, eyes glazed and hearts exposed, I reached for the speaker again. I pressed record, held it between us, and said, "Start the next track." I didn't expect him to smile when I said it. But he did, this slow, dangerous kind of smile, like he finally let himself feel everything he'd spent years burying beneath friendship and timing and what-ifs. The speaker blinked red between us, capturing the silence, the breath, the aftermath. A new kind of recording. Ours. "You know," he said, brushing a strand of hair from my cheek. "That was never meant to be the first track you heard." I tilted my head, pulse still thudding behind my ribs. "What was?" He hesitated, then reached into his drawer and pulled out his phone. After a few taps, he handed it to me. "Play that." Pressed it. First it was just his voice. Quiet. Nervous. "Okay, I don't even know if I'll send this. But if you're hearing it, it means I couldn't keep pretending anymore." I blinked, my breath catching in my throat. "I love you. I think I've loved you for longer than I understand. And I know we've drawn this invisible line between us, but I also know that one of us has to cross it. And if it can't be me, maybe this recording will be enough to make you look at me like I'm more than safe." It ended. Simple. Unpolished. Real. I looked up, tears stinging behind my eyes, the kind that don't fall but make everything ache. "Why didn't you play this one?" I asked. "Because the fantasy was easier than the truth," he said. "But you didn't fall for the fantasy. You stayed for the silence. For the in-between. For me." He sat beside me then, his arm brushing mine, warm and grounding. No more distance. No more pretending. And for the first time we were just us. Not best friends. Not mistakes. Not confessions whispered into empty rooms. Just two people who got tired of waiting for the right moment and finally decided to make one. Later, when the night had settled and the music had stopped and our breathing had synced into something soft and steady, he picked up the speaker and held it between us. "Last track," he said. "What should we say?" I didn't even have to think. "Nothing," I said. We let the silence speak for us. The kind of silence that only happens when two people finally stop hiding.